So I look at this a little differently, and I just kind of looked up a track list for Tank, and I don't really see any begging songs. I don't see anything like that in his track list. So the question I have is, has he tried it? The second thing that I'll add is that absolutely positively does sell, and I think it would push if he attempted it. I mean, if we look back into the 90s, 80s, and 70s, it was full of what you would call simp music, begging a woman, and it was quite profitable. So I think that he is kind of what's the word, kind of shooting himself in the foot by saying that kind of statement when he himself hasn't even doesn't even put out that type of music to even test the market for it. And Tank, in my opinion, is quite popular.
And
I
Um,
mean,
also,
like Sierra used a great example when she said John Legend. He puts out phenomenal, mostly positive music and sells out stadiums.
but the rotation time, what he's talking about on the airwaves, even John Legend, don't get the type of
what?
play. No, like when we're looking at when he came out in his heyday, yes. But even then, when we compare a lot of the rap music and stuff like that that comes out, and even like the R&B, is it is always typically sexually explicit, like all the time. You know what I'm saying? Or it's about violence. And a lot of representation in regards to Black people, it always fall in those two categories. So when we talk about pushing an agenda, if
Hmm.
you look at all of when we're talking about social media, the news, or what have you, I personally see a pattern of that. So in the music, you're hearing violence and you're hearing sex. When
Yeah.
you're watching the news, it's about violence and representation of Black people being violent, or something that has to do with sex. So I don't think it's just in music. I think it's in various genres that there's a theme about the way that Black people are presented. And so I do think that that also goes into what I think the deeper message of what he was saying is that it's talking about money, that it sells to keep us in a position that we're in, so to speak. But I do agree with you in the fact that we are the only ones that have the power to change that narrative. But that's for us to decide that, and I don't think that we are at that place yet.
I wanted to say too, I think that there is a market for it. I think the market is, I mean, obviously white people have taken over R&B now. You listen to a white channel, that's pretty much R&B. You close your eyes, it's R&B. It's just not Black people singing it anymore. And two, people, have you ever been to an R&B concert? They are like packed out like a Beyonce concert. So people do want to hear old school R&B. It's just not being played. And why it's not being played, that's crazy to me. You have to go to a certain channel just to get the R&B feel. So there's definitely a market. The New Edition concert is sold out in State Farm Arena.
Well,
So
my
people,
thing is how come there isn't any, like you're talking about old school art R&B, and I think that's
R&B,
part of
it's
what
just,
no, part of what I'm getting at is that right there, that kind of music, that soulful music, even when you're talking about Sam Cooke and all of the other artists that even came before the artists that we listen to now. When you look at it today, there is minimal artists that even put out that kind of music. Why is there that shift? I mean, I just say, for me, I personally don't hear it. Like now I don't even really listen to the radio anymore because of that very reason. because I keep running into the type of music that I don't want to hear. So for me, it has to be intentional to go and listen to the old school music because that's more of my taste. But if there are new artists that put out that kind of that same feel of music, I would listen to new artists, but it's just minimal. I don't hear it.
So I think for me, the experience is the opposite, right? Like I'm hearing a lot of and especially it's like the younger guys, right? The guys who are just kind of they're bringing in a lot of that R&B. They're like revamping a lot of that old sound. They're sampling all of the classics, right? For me, it's not so the genre of music, but it's the messaging in the music, where they used to be love songs and family related songs. And not to say there weren't some really toxic songs that we grew up listening to, but they sounded nice. But now like that level of dysfunction is hidden into that type of music. Like when we look at like, you know, the Doja Cats, when we look at Giveon, when we look at like all of these artists that make beautiful music, you sit down and you listen to the lyrics and it's like you want to just like pay for their therapy. Like it's brutal, the messaging, right? Like it's really toxic. But I guess for me, that's where the pushback for Trigger Mike is it's not the genre. We still have R&B. Black people are still rocking R&B, right? Like nobody does it the way we do. Nobody does soul the way that we do. But it's the lyricism behind it. And even if you're not actually paying attention to the words, it's still seeping into your subconscious, right? And to say that isn't being monetized, that toxicity is not being monetized, that the effects of like taking that in, internalizing it, and reacting in that way is not being monetized. I think I can't see how it can't be.
Wait, we don't disagree on it being monetized. I'm I'm trying to state why it's being monetized. So I don't disagree. They only monetize what we consume. That is it. So you're absolutely right. The toxic, depressive movement, like it's all what's popping. And it's actually getting slowly replaced because I think for the last 5 straight years, Afro beats is like it's gonna kind of like be the new hip hop. They don't talk about none of this stuff, right? But they're just watching what's trending, what people are consuming. This is why Triple X Tentacion and Lil Uzi, these emo ass kids, are literally going, like nobody knows them on one end, but yet they're number one on Billboard. It's because the people who are emotional and buying music all over the world, and they found new mediums like Spotify and Apple Music to market them. They will just push. It's not that they absolutely are monetizing it, but they're looking at the algorithm from a profit standpoint, not a racial agenda, destroy this community standpoint. That's what people keep pushing. And I'm telling you, it's really the small hats behind the curve. Like they don't care. And the reason I can prove that is I think someone just said it. Look at what they allow in their own music now. Their own music is toxic. Dua Lipa is toxic, right? The white artists are toxic. So they're pushing what all of these artists are saying. It doesn't matter what they're saying. They have overly sexual music in white communities. They have gangster rap in Asian community. They got all of this. So it's really, they will push what, even if it's supposedly destroying their own community, they will push it for profit. I'm telling you.
I can concede to that.
Mm.
And I can agree, but the question is, has anyone tried to be profitable on the other side of it? Like when we're using an example like Sam Smith, who was quite profitable with his 4 total songs that I think were ridiculously popular at the time. Has anyone else really tried to mimic that type of music to even see if it can be profitable again?